Hi, I'm Sarah Simmons, and I am the chef and owner of Birds and Bubbles in New York City, Rise Gourmet Goods and Bake Shop in Columbia, South Carolina, and City Grit, which is a national brand. My culinary identity is really defined by my experiences that are all grounded in my Southern upbringing. I cook food that is either something that I've been eating my whole life, or that's inherently Southern, or it's a food that maybe is derived from another ethnicity using Southern ingredients. It's funny, I originally, when I first started cooking, set out to not make Southern food. I ran from it because even I thought that Southern food was just fried chicken and collard greens and overcooked vegetables. And as I started to cook, I had this lofty vision of cooking Italian food, and I made pasta for a year, and every dish I put out, whether people liked it or not, I was never satisfied with it. And it had a lot to do with the fact that it wasn't a part of me. It didn't have soul, essentially. I felt like it was inauthentic. I was putting out something that had no story. And so I started cooking Southern food simply because it was what I knew. And it was all heart. And so over time, I really returned home, essentially, and started making Southern food based on my travels. And that's where all of the different ethnicities come into play in the dishes that we serve. Definitely my mother was a huge influence on me. She taught me to make all of the mother sauces as a kid. I have been cooking since I was a child, and I'm self-taught, so it's been a hard road of making things over and over and over again and reading and learning. I could definitely say, even though I've never cooked with him, Frank Stitt is probably the chef that has had the most influence on my cooking, because it was his cookbooks, Southern Table, that opened my eyes to what Southern food could be. So I had that mentality that Southern food was just fried chicken and pork chops and pulled pork and collards. And then I read his book, and it was like a light went off in my head that, you can make food using French technique and Southern ingredients and transform it. And so I have him to thank for everything. A lot of the food on the menu at Birds and Bubbles is elevated versions of dishes that I've been eating my whole life. And every single dish has a story, which I think is exciting. It makes the food taste better. Food tastes better when you have a background and a history and a story behind it. I get more excited about it because of the history. Then the servers get excited about it, and then the guests get excited about it. So it has that trickle-down effect. We have a pineapple casserole on the menu that is a version of a dish my Aunt Edna brought to every family reunion. So I've been eating it my whole life. In the winter, we serve an Italian stuffing, which is actually my Aunt Kathy's mother-in-law's recipe that we have every Christmas. So there's little pieces of my history sprinkled about the menu. I think it's really necessary for all foodways to evolve and to be innovative and to reinvent themselves over and over again, because I fear that if we stop doing that, people will get complacent or bored with those cuisines, with those techniques, with those ingredients. And we're already at a risk across the country of people not cooking altogether. And so I think it's really important for us to work to make everything fresh and new and exciting so people continue to be interested in it, just so we can continue to have a demand for these amazing ingredients and for teaching people how to cook and handing those traditions down. I hope that doesn't get lost. I think my creative process is mostly stimulated by the fact that I'm just a fat kid. I love to eat. I think about food all the time. We pass by a store, and in the window I'll see something, and I'll think about how I can turn that into something else. Even in New York, I spent a summer walking by the same lady peeling mangoes and throwing them in a Ziploc bag with hot sauce and selling them for $3 on the corner. And I created a sauce that went with a dish that we were serving for the summer because it was inspired by this lady on the corner selling mangoes in a Ziploc bag. It's just about taking everything in and internalizing it and then externalizing it in a dish. I think that you can inspire your team by being excited. And I think that a lot of it has to do with making sure you're always learning so you can teach them new things and you give them the opportunity to play with and explore ingredients. I think one of my favorite things is that we there's a laundry list of Southern ingredients that are really special to me. And if we just put out dishes that I've always been cooking using these ingredients, then everyone's going to get in a rut. But if you allow them to explore these ingredients, and a lot of them are from different countries and have never seen these ingredients before, and let them put their own spin on things or bring them to life themselves, then you start to create an excitement that bleeds throughout the kitchen. I'm mostly excited about the appreciation and resurgence of vegetables on menus, and people are actually asking for them and wanting them, and having a restaurant that is, where the fried chicken is the flagship dish. It is exciting for me to have the desire for other dishes that balance it, that are vegetable driven. So I think right now doing creative things with vegetables is exciting for me, not just because it's vegetable season, but because the guests are really asking for it. Well, I live for corn and tomatoes. Tomatoes are just the most magical thing. And in South Carolina, where we just opened this bake shop, I'm really excited because there's 2 tomato seasons. So it's twice as much excitement. The fruits of the summer, watermelon, there's nothing like watermelon. It's one of those things that almost every single person that I've ever met, has that sigh and excitement about watermelon. It brings them back to being a child. Corn is so amazing. I'm just really waiting for summer. The secret to making really great fried chicken, I believe, is starting out with really great chicken. We source our birds from Amish farmers all throughout Pennsylvania, and they never see water. So they're air chilled. We actually dry brine them instead of, soaking them overnight. And I think that is, we're starting out with a great product, and then we're just doing a little bit to it. We put some seasoning on it, we let it sit for a couple of days, and then it gets a quick bath in buttermilk and egg, and then a quick toss and a little bit of flour and cornstarch, and then it's pan fried. We fry every single piece of chicken at Birds and Bubbles in a cast iron skillet, and I think that has something to do with how magical and perfect, and the crust is always crispy. It doesn't bounce around in a fryer. I think those are a few secrets for good fried chicken. I think we relate to our customers in the restaurant just by being authentic. I am truly excited about the food. I'm also excited about the beverage program. There's a lot of bottles from champagne growers. I've been to those estates and I've visited with them, and I've seen how they make it, and they've become friends, and it's really exciting to see these bottles on the table. And sometimes it'll shock guests because I'll go up and see a bottle on their table and I'll ask them, do you want to hear the story about Charles Heidsieck? It's a great story. And they're often surprised that the chef is talking to them about beverage. And so it's exciting to see that. The energy of a restaurant, there's just nothing like it. Southern diners, I feel, are different from New York diners because they tend to show up for their reservations. In New York, there's just this sense of, oh, it's raining, we're not going to go to dinner. Or the subway's down, which I totally understand, let's just eat in the neighborhood. And I think that's been really frustrating because Southerners are polite. They will at least call, and sometimes if they don't show up, they'll send you a note apologizing. But in New York, they just don't understand what those 4 empty seats can do to you on a Saturday night. Southerners, to me, are also more surprised because they've eaten this food their entire lives or similar dishes. And so they're a tougher crowd to surprise them or show them something in a new light, in a new way. It's a bigger challenge. So it is really exciting for us when we get to do that. For young cooks starting out, I believe they should just work really hard and have great attitudes and show up to their stages and show up early and or at least on time every day and learn what they can. Everyone wants to teach this new generation, but they need the new generation to want to learn. They need them to want to practice the same thing over and over again until it's perfect. They need them to want to strive for perfection. And they need them to want to go through the paces before, asking to be promoted in 3 months or 6 months, or everyone shouldn't be a sous chef after a year. I think that over the next few years, we'll definitely see some restaurants from our restaurant group that are more elevated. I think that it's an exciting time that casual fine dining is actually becoming one of the fastest growing segments. I think that we'll also put out a couple more counter service businesses and concepts, because that's also, a great way to be innovative and nimble and quick and put out a great product without having an hour and a half experience in the dining room.